Hello and welcome to the presentation of Collaboration and Communication in 21st Century Technology, draft form. You might hear some road volume because I'm sitting in my truck. Got lots to do, headed back up north in a couple days, so we're slightly multitasking, so don't bother with the car noise that you're going to hear. Alright, here we go. This presentation, of my opinion, conveniently supported by a handful of intelligent practitioners, is going to focus on communication technology that might be effective for use in some small Western Canadian Arctic communities in the Kitikmeot region, not to be too specific. The following is my attempt to suggest how the Kitikmeot communities could engage in collaborative ventures to affect change on a regional level, and I hope that students will be able to find success in the environments that we know is conducive for them. In my statement of the presentation, I'm specifically not including technology because I believe increasingly that recognizing our goal should be first, and we should only support that with technology. 21st century education requires thoughtful use of technology, and over the past 30 years, technology has pushed its way into education. The tech bubble, the allure of shiny screens, the awe of instant information, needs to give way to pedagogically sound practice. Technology cannot lead education. The internet, the device, the software, they each allow us to complete a given task, but they're only vehicles. We need to clarify our destination and then use the vehicle to arrive there. Michael Fullan would say that technology is not a driver, it's an accelerator. Susie Boss would argue that technology has not been used to reach deep learning goals, but it's just been layered on top of traditional instruction. In May of 2011, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates agreed that so far computers have made remarkably little impact on our schools. The Kitikmeot is made up of 5 communities. Broadly speaking, 2 of them are similar in their size and resources, and the 3 others are equal in a similar way. We have Kugluktuk and Cambridge Bay, each with an elementary and a high school. We have Taloyuak with 1 K-12 school, Joe Haven with an elementary and a high school, and Kukruk with a K-12 school. These communities have had a long, successful history in the Kitikmeot region. The 2 Inuit groups that make up the area are the Netsilik Inuit and the Copper Inuit. A third community that also makes up the Copper Inuit is located on the western side of Nunavut and Northwest Territories border, and therefore is not going to be formally included in this planning. Kugluktuk and Cambridge Bay are similar in their size and needs. Their development has been similar historically. Their contact with southern counterparts is similar. Their academic trends are comparable. The Office of the Auditor General of Canada provided a report to the Legislative Assembly of Nunavut in 2013. The Nunavut Education Act of 2008 included a vision that students attending school in Nunavut during the 2019-2020 school year would be fully immersed in a bilingual school setting, speaking in Inuit language or English or French. Officials report that the territory will not be successful in its efforts to offer sufficient bilingual programming required to meet the 2020 vision. The department vastly underestimated the support that would be required to implement the goals. There are a number of stakeholders in education, a number of factors that complicate the department's ability to address its shortcomings, and overall the department is in agreement with the Auditor General's recommendation and has provided some detailed responses to facilitate moving forward. This is providing the basis for my inquiry. I'm not going to dive too far into the nitty-gritty of Nunavut's education system. Hiring practices, reporting procedures, attendance quarrels, or assessment practice. The language debate is, however, indicative of a number of debates around the territory. Top-down management by the department is difficult to organize, especially keeping in mind each community has vastly different needs. My inquiry will combine ideas brought forward by Michael Fullan and leadership from the middle, and will suggest 21st century technology's role. As early as 1962, our own Marshall McLuhan described the world as a global village. He was remarking on the closeness that we would forever live in thanks to developments in telecommunications. The first website would not be posted on the World Wide Web until 1991, and the internet would not perform functionally to the general public for another 10 years. McLuhan, 30 years early, predicted the rapid communication that would soon consume us. Now communication defines our age, and beside communication is knowledge. Thomas Friedman spoke of the world becoming flat with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the introduction of an accessible internet. Subsequent to that, with some major economic factors and construction of some multinational and global companies, many of us have found ourselves living in a flat global village. Many places still, however, are in no way flat, and the world on the whole is particularly uneven, literally and figuratively. Friedman suggests that the developing countries, isolated pockets and within developed countries, and other areas that have been precluded from his 10 flatteners can still advance given the right circumstances. First on the flattening checklist is infrastructure to make connections. Presently, those connections are still being made in the Arctic. Though the internet has certainly existed in the Arctic for some time, I'd argue that meaningful use of technology requires much more access than will be made available in the near future. So, for that reason, we do have to start small. The question is, what does collaboration look like in a 21st century school? Michael Fullan has suggested a concept called leadership from the middle. What is leadership from the middle? First of all, the middle means school boards, districts, or regions. From there, you can determine the top and the bottom. Leadership from the middle can be formally defined as a deliberate strategy that increases the capacity and internal coherence of the middle as it becomes a more effective partner upward to the state and downward to its schools and communities, in pursuit of greater system performance. Leadership from the middle is a reasonable step for schools to take, Fullan explains, because top-down lacks buy-in and bottom-up goes unnoticed by the whole. The middle stays true to the bottom's needs, but has the capacity to communicate with the top. Fullan gives 3 reasons for leadership from the middle's promise. The mass of people that want to be involved can be. Innovations happen in collaboration. The middle is literally in the best position to facilitate action between the top and the bottom. Fullan illustrates his point with New Zealand's shift toward middle thinking. In 1989, New Zealand enacted Tomorrow's Schools, wherein each school was provided with resources to work on their own. Bottom-up change. Education did not improve. Gaps remained and system-wide reform failed. In 2014, they enacted Investing in Education Success, where networks of schools ranging from 5 to 20 would work together to drive change. This would be leadership from the middle. The initiative is imposed from the top, but the work is happening in the middle, and Fullan would suggest that this practice will inspire collaboration and authentic learning. I believe that schools in the Kitikmeot are beginning to have resources to make leadership from the middle a reality with communication technology. This is an especially exciting prospect because the technology development that we previously discussed throughout the world over the past 30 years in a way has missed the Arctic. In the most advanced communities, internet connections can't be relied upon. If they can be acquired and afforded, government and education networks are still hodgepodge and ad hoc. While improvements have been vast over the past 30 years, they pale in comparison to the rest of Canada, which itself is quite poor compared to the rest of the industrialized world. Our steps toward collaboration. In the past, we've been introduced to methods of communication boosted by the power of the internet, which came in a bang and faded out just as fast. Things like ICQ, AOL Instant Messenger, MSN, texting using SMS and MMS technology, BlackBerry Messenger, now Facebook Messenger, and iMessage. Software develops so quickly that to design change around software would certainly guarantee that an out-of-date project would be there before you begin. We can focus ourselves on communication concepts then generally by using the term computer-mediated communication, or CMC. This will ensure that our plans remain relevant. CMC is any communication, whether in real time or otherwise, that occurs through the use of online or internet-based tools. CMC can be synchronous, such as a chat room or some other variation, or asynchronous, using email or a wiki. Largely, the communication methods that we engage with today are thread-based. Skardmala and Breiter fervently oppose our traditional communication method and argue that they have limited value. Their value is limited in that they do not foster knowledge-building communities. I'm not going to spend too much time researching CMC platforms. However, what we do need to agree upon is that communication is our real context. In the past, our department has constructed working groups to facilitate communication. They focused on module development and best practices. Our department's also recently become increasingly involved in offering courses for professional development at a graduate level. In both of these examples, there were rich conversations among colleagues that result in concrete ideas and provide a springboard for great teaching. The weakness of these meetings is that A, they're in person, and B, the energy and knowledge that's gained is often quickly lost. There have been attempts to remedy these losses. My favorite is course wikis, a massive compilation of information that often ends up being abandoned. The wiki has been broadly developed to regurgitate the work that was done in some awfully convoluted threaded format. Evangelos Morozov wrote The Net Delusion, The Dark Side of Internet Freedom, wherein he provides cautionary tales of technology's boom. Morozov writes that the internet aids and abets shallow commitment. I believe the statement to be very true. Wikis can be a very good example of consuming information without making a contribution to the whole. And I think of this when I think of digital piracy days when we saw a torrent that we preferred, but we were deterred when we looked at the seed-leech ratio. Some of us are contributors, but many more are leeches. Leadership from the middle juxtaposes the department's attempts at education development. Leadership from the middle in the Kitikmeot will begin on a small scale with those participants that want to be involved. It's driven by best practices and that are most relevant for learning success right now. It will consist of a community of colleagues with authentic needs. Success in the classroom, success as an educator, success for children. Skardmala and Breiter say that no matter what type of learning one is engaged in, it must be authentic and useful in your context. These small collaborative environments are specifically authentic and will be too small for leeches. Whether CMC is synchronous or asynchronous, threaded or space-based, colleagues will be pulled into the conversation and will be driven to participate. Leadership from the middle engages those that want to be involved, a stark difference compared to top-down approaches that require participation, or participation provides an ulterior distinction, like a trip to the city or a pay increase. The goal of collaborative communities will be to seek improvement and sustainability to literacy instruction in Coquitlam and Cambridge. Fullan says that leadership from the middle's goal offers system coherence by addressing system and local needs. We've established system needs, that is, children that need to have basic literacy strategies in order to express themselves. The collaborative community would strengthen each other's practice to meet those needs. It would take that system goal and focus it with local needs. In the past, our schools have been working in silos, making use of CMC in small targeted groups using leadership from the middle strategies that would allow for collaborative communities. The creation of a small community of learners, which from the onset is driven by a clear focus in local needs and includes only those learners that are authentically interested, has the potential for significant knowledge building. Discourse about the topic at hand in any way is valuable to generate knowledge. The small access that our communities have to technology, specifically reliable internet connections, can still act as an accelerator to collaboration. Establishing priorities in collaboration would be the first step. For this to take place, asynchronous CMC would be a fine solution. Based on the priorities, further communication methods would be explored by the group. The most important piece of this collaboration is that we're driven by the goal of supporting each other in our schools. Communication needs to be open between colleagues, classes, and schools. Our knowledge needs to be shared. From this premise, we can find communication technology to fit our needs. The biggest mistake would be to impose a method on the group and shape collaboration around the tech's limitations. 21st century collaboration recognizes all types of technology and applies them as required to complete the given task.